Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start factoring algebraic expressions. Now, factoring is probably the most difficult thing that you do in algebra. All right, but since it's a multiple choice, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a little shortcut here. But first, I actually want to factor and show you how it's done. So, first thing we're going to do is we're looking for the greatest common factor of all three terms. Okay, if you remember from last week, we did greatest common factor, least common multiple. So what we want to do is we want to look and see what number can go into -3, -12, and 36. Now we always want this lead coefficient to try to be a positive, so we would have to get rid of this negative. What I notice is that -3 goes into all three of those. And when you do that, you're actually factoring out a 3, you're dividing all of those by 3. I also notice that each one of these has an x in it. So I'm going to factor out the smallest x. So I'm going to pull out an x. So what do I have left? Well, -3 over -3 is a +1, and this 3 becomes a 2. So that's x squared. Here, -12 divided by -3 is a +4. The 2 becomes a 1 because I factor out an x. Here, 36 divided by -3 is -12. And since I factored out an x, there's no other x left. All right? So now you have to factor. Well, how do I factor? Since this number in front of x squared here is a 1, I don't need to do anything. This means this is going to be -3x, and I'm going to set up where when we factor, what we're actually doing is we're doing FOIL in reverse. So it's going to look like we have two binomials here. Since this is an x squared, these are both going to be x's. Okay? So what I have to do is I have to factor 12. All right? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now look at this last sign here. That last sign's a minus. That's saying take these factors, and which of these factors, when we subtract, give me the middle term 4. Well, I'm looking, well, not 12 minus 1, 6 minus 2. So I'm going to put a 2 and a 6 in, okay? Now, the minus sign also tells me these signs should be different. The sign of the middle term goes to the bigger number. So that's going to be a +6, which means 2 is going to be minus. So if I go down here, which of those look like the answer? B. Now, the shortcut on this would be, I factored out a -3x. If I go down here, which one of these has a -3x? There's only one answer. The answer would have been B. You didn't even have to do all this, okay? So if I go to number 2 now, same thing. What can go into both 8 and 10? 2. So I can take a 2 out. So that means I'm dividing 8 by 2, I'm dividing 10 by 2. I also notice I can pull out an x. So what's 8 divided by 2? 4. And this 2 becomes a 1, so that's going to be 4x. Here, 10 divided by 2 is 5. The x goes away because I factored it out. So which one of those is going to be our answer? That answer is A. Also, if you don't want to factor, because it's a multiple choice, what you can do is you can just say, hey, let's do this. Let's distribute and see which one of these answers is going to match the problem. And you would do that, you would see that this one ends up being the 8x squared plus 10x. Like here, 2 times 4x is 8x, 2 times 5 is 10. That's not the same as up here, it's this one. Okay, this one wouldn't work. So back to number 3 here. 3 is just like number 1. We're going to factor out, and I see that 4 can go into all 3 numbers. So 4, 4, and 4. I also notice that they all have an x, so I can take an x out as well, just like we did in number 1. So what do I have remaining? 4 divided by 4 is 1. That's x squared because the 3 becomes a 2. We got rid of an x. 32 divided by 4 is 8. X, because we got rid of an x. And then 80 divided by 4, that's going to be -20. And we got rid of the x, so we don't have to do anything. So it's still 4x, and remember we have to make two sets of parentheses because we're going to have two binomials. We're going FOIL in reverse. Take your last number, 20. Since this is an x squared, I don't have to do anything here. These are both going to be x because it's 1x times 1x whenever we go to FOIL. So now I have 20, and what are my factors? 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Now, which of those, looking at the last sign again, which of those subtracts gives me 8? So I look over here, 10 and 2. Last sign is a minus, so the signs have to be different. If this were a plus sign, the signs would be the same. We would just take the sign of the middle term. But since it's a minus, middle sign goes to the bigger number, plus, minus. So we go down here. Which one has 4x and x plus 10, x minus 2? That answer is C. Okay? And again, what you could do, since it's multiple choice, I pulled out a 4x, I know C or D is going to be the answer. You know, those little shortcuts. And then, with what I have remaining, just do FOIL down here to see which one of those would give you x squared plus 8x minus 20. All right? So, you have to do the rest of the problems. Factor algebraic expressions packet, 4 through 10. Wash your hands, save a life.